I convinced myself that I needed to keep the job that I also hated because of financial reasons. And, heaven forbid somebody think I was irresponsible by just like quitting my job. Um, so I thought I had time, and that's where I made my mistake. Because 2 months later, my ex, who had no history of violence, drove over 1,000 miles, and at 6 o'clock on a Saturday night in October, he knocked on the front door. And I wasn't afraid of him. I had no reason to fear this person. But the night did end with his arrest for attempted murder of me. And it was at that point, you know, had he succeeded and had that actually been my last night on earth, then I wasn't even happy. Like, I'd solved half the problem. I had the balls to get out of the relationship, but I only solved half of my happiness problem.
Mm-hmm.
And convinced myself that I had to suck it up and tolerate the rest, at least until the lease ran out, and then I could start my life then.
Welcome back to Daily Power Boost. And this episode of Beyond the Boost, I'm speaking with Jay Lumen of the Unknown Bucket List. Welcome, Jay. Would you care to give us a full introduction?
Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me. Well, the unknown bucket list, I like to call, is it's a multifunctional approach to living, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more. But part of it is just, it's the bucket list of life that we're already living that we don't even know that we are. But as you said, I'm Jay, and I part of my past is led me to creating this approach to living, and it's all about living the best life you can, not defined by your means or circumstances, and living a life that you don't regret, because we only get one.
Absolutely. All right. To kick us off, can you take us back to that night? I don't know how deep you want to go. But that night when that attempt on your life became this catalyst. What was the moment you realized you couldn't wait for someday anymore?
Well, and I'll go as deep as you want, so I'll just kind of skim the surface, and if you feel like your listeners would want to go even deeper, you ask me any questions. um, you I tell people, I'm like, I've said this so many times in court that it doesn't bother me to say anything, so it's totally up to you. But basically, like many of us, we reach a certain point in our life where it's kind of on autopilot, and it's not really the life that we imagined for us. Maybe it's a little meh. Um, and we realize we deserve better. We don't want to keep living our life that way. And so I found myself in a relationship that was not the right one, not for any particular reason. It just was not the right relationship. And because I was financially responsible for us, then I felt like I was trapped in my job as well. I wanted to make some change, wasn't quite sure where to begin. Again, I felt trapped in my life. And eventually I realized that I could pay for him to move away. So that I moved him 4 states away to go live with his family. And I convinced myself that I needed to keep the job that I also hated because of financial reasons. And, heaven forbid somebody think I was irresponsible by just like quitting my job. Um, so I thought I had time, and that's where I made my mistake. Because 2 months later, my ex, who had no history of violence, drove over 1,000 miles, and at 6 o'clock on a Saturday night in October, he knocked on the front door. And I wasn't afraid of him. I had no reason to fear this person. But the night did end with his arrest for attempted murder of me. And it was at that point, you know, had he succeeded and had that actually been my last night on earth, then I wasn't even happy. Like, I'd solved half the problem. I had the balls to get out of the relationship, but I only solved half of my happiness problem.
Hmm.
and convinced myself that I had to suck it up and tolerate the rest, at least until the lease ran out, and then I could start my life then. Um, but after that night, then it was like, no, I don't have time to waste, and I'm not going to do that anymore. So whatever it takes, by whatever means necessary, I'm going to make sure that I'm always living a life that I don't regret, because I don't know when my last day on earth will be. And it's like that for all of us. It's very unexpected usually. So,
Right. Yeah. It's usually a major event of some type that kind of wakes us up and goes, I don't have someday.
right.
If I want to shift, I got to do it now. And that's a lot of what I talk about on the podcast is like, let's get out of autopilot because
Hmm.
it's very easy to get into that autopilot. Either it's the comfort zone, right? Or we just feel stuck and we have all the reasons why I can't do that, why I have to stay on this job, why I don't want to break the lease. I don't want you nailed it. Like, what if people think I'm a screw up or I'm a,
Yeah.
insert comment here?
Yeah. There's a fear of judgment of, from our friends, our families, our colleagues. There's that. And we also put our own internal pressure on ourselves. We're making an assumption that those people are going to judge us, and they might not actually judge us for pursuing a life that we want, but that's it's just kind of the norm. And there's also a guilt aspect to it too, like, well, this is kind of the life that I chose, it's the path I've been on, so I guess I do kind of have to, maybe this is what being an adult is, and I just have to suck it up. And there's all these reasons, but I like to flip the switch on how people think.
Hmm.
And yes, there are ways that you can still be responsible or still, you know, not feel guilty about choosing to better your own life.
Right. You don't have to intentionally blow the whole thing up.
No.
You can, like you said, you can make a small adjustment to start
Yep,
moving in the right direction. But if you're
exactly.
continually waiting because of the thoughts in the head,
Hmm.
as you realized and as I realized earlier in my life, we don't have tomorrow's not promised,
Right.
right? We have now, and that's it. So
Yeah.
why not live the way you want to live and let go of all the junk, the head trash?
Yeah. Head trash is a good expression. And it's, I really get the guilt that people feel, especially if they have children. But essentially, we're sharing. Our life is our life, and then we choose to share it with others. We choose to share it with our children. We choose to share it with our spouse, our partner, our colleagues, our friends, whoever. The reality is that the people around us who we're either trying to live a way that they think that we think they want us to live, or
Hmm.
that they're not going to judge us, or whatever the case may be. But those people will eventually be gone, or we will be gone. And so that's why it's really important that you do live the life that you want.
Right. And have a conversation. Like,
Exactly.
break out of your head trash of what you believe others will think about you or say about you, and ask the question like, hey, I'm going to do this, you know
Mhm.
and maybe they will say you're crazy. I got
Well,
I
and
got that response when I said I was moving out of the country. They're like, "What? Why would you do that?"
part of that, yes, some people will think you're crazy, but part of that is because now you are going outside of their comfort zone.
Uh-huh.
Not your comfort zone, but their comfort zone, because they know what life is like with you where you're at. But you where you're at may not be your place that you want to be. Like you said, you wanted to move out of the country. People were like, well, that's crazy, because that's something they weren't comfortable with. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say once you moved and people realized that you could establish, you could be great, you were thriving in your new home, then they became comfortable with it. Is that inaccurate?
No,
No, no.
no. My it just came up recently. Somebody said, "Well, I'm not the one that chose to move you out of the country," to my wife.
Ah,
But the thing is like we're living our life and we're happy.
exactly. Yeah.
And it's not my job to make other people happy. I'm sorry,
No,
it
it's
isn't.
not. And that goes back to what
And
I
I
was
couldn't
saying.
if I tried.
Yeah, and that actually ties back into what I was saying about, how living how other people think we need to live. That's a perfect example, as well.
Right,
You and your wife are living the life that makes you happy, not somebody else.
right. So talking about like redefining
Mhm.
things and reframing, how did you go from I survived to I'm going to thrive? What was the internal narrative shift?
Honestly, what because he had no history of violence, what he did was so unexpected that people probably would not have been surprised if I had just kind of curled up into a ball and hid away in the world. But my own personal drive was, okay, well, I'm not going to waste my time. So I set out to just basically put one foot in front of the other. And I went back and revisited, because I really didn't know where to start, but I went back and revisited some of my core values, some of the things that I enjoyed doing while I was a child. And that gave me a direction to at least move. And I knew that by moving in that direction, I would be moving in a direction that I knew made me happy, because that's, in the past, those were what made me happy. And by at least moving in that direction, then you can move a little bit. And if you need to readjust, or suddenly something pops up and you're like, oh, I didn't know about that, let me go
Mm-hmm.
explore that. And then you give yourself permission to really embrace the unknown, because life happens that way anyway, in unplanned, random, and unexpected events all day, and we deal with it every day anyway.
Right. Well, and that kind of reminds me of, I call it boots on the ground.
Mhm.
So here in Guatemala, and we've been here 11, almost 11 years now, you can look online and see what a town looks like. You can see places for rent, and the pictures might make it look really great. But usually, like we were always warned, like don't go by the, like, get ideas from the web, but don't book those showings because those prices are elevated because they're targeted
Mhm.
at a different audience. Like
Mhm.
if you want to get the best rate on a rental, you need to go into that town and be there to find the place, to find the right place for you. So, just like you said, when you started moving, you could see new things like, oh, didn't think about that. But because you weren't here, you were now over here, you could see it. If you'd stayed where you were, maybe you wouldn't have seen it.
Exactly. So, and you can, just for audience purposes, the way you can really put that into a visualization is if you are in your car and you're out in the middle of a country road at a four-way stop. You can no There's no traffic around, so nobody is pressuring you to make a decision one way or another. So you can actually sit at that stop sign and think about what direction you might want to go for as long as you want. But as long as you just think, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
But if you turn right, turn left, or continue to go straight, you can go for a little while. And if all of a sudden you're like, well, this really isn't what I thought it was going to be, you can turn around, you can go back the other way, you
Make a new
can change
choice.
your directions. Yeah. Another example that I like to share with people is if they stand facing forward and they take 3 steps forward, they're going to be exactly on the straight line that they're walking. If they go back to where they were and they shift their toes this much and take 3 steps forward, they're now this far away from where they were. So just micro shifts. Like you were saying earlier, you don't have to do a complete overhaul of your life. You can do little micro shifts and you will make change that way. Even if you aren't sure of what to do, if you just do a tiny little thing, it will change and then things will open up.
Well, and I like you mentioned visualizations. One of the best pictures I've heard was, let's say you have a flight that takes off from LaGuardia,
Okay.
and the pilot, the whole flight, he's constantly having to make little adjustments. Because
Mhm.
if he just got up and put it on course and just flew, I've heard he would end up, instead of going to San Francisco, he'd end up in San Diego or something like that, right? He'd be
Right.
so off course at the other end if he didn't, or at the last minute, he'd have to do this abrupt maneuver, which the passengers would not be very happy about.
No, I don't think that would feel very good. But that is a really good example because I also say if you don't move, life will move you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it goes the same way, you know. Um, if if the pilot isn't controlling the plane and making all these little micro adjustments, the wind is gonna blow him to who knows where or up down who knows what. It's the same way with life. You know, life comes at us, and if we don't move, then we're just kind of in the current of wherever it's taking us.
Right. And it might not be, probably won't be where we want to go.
No, and you know, we get to the point where we just get accustomed to, we get comfortable with accepting it is what it is, and we forget that we can actually get out of the river,
Right.
walk along the bank. We can choose to get back in the river if we want to, or we can go find a different river, or, you know, whatever. We
Exactly.
forget it because we're so in the zone and so on autopilot that it's like, oh wait, no, I do matter in my life. Yeah, you do.
Right. So, on this topic of micro shifts,
Mhm.
can you share a specific micro shift that had a, a good rip, like a major ripple effect for you?
Basically, my career. So after that happened, I completely, after that night, I completely changed my entire life. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew from being in high school, I knew I didn't want an ordinary Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job. So I explored various gig gig careers, and those were all fun. But one thing ended landed me in television production, and so I just kind of started exploring that, and it was local. But then I thought, well, I'll drive to California. There's work out there, and so I did, and then it just became this snowball effect of, because I did all these little things, because I wasn't afraid to go. I could always come back, but let's go see what's over there, and maybe I would like it, maybe I wouldn't like it, and then I can come back. And it's actually led me all over the country and all over the world at this point, but that was probably the most profound, just by being open to trying and doing a little mini shift of changing my location. Like, okay, well, let's go over here and we'll see what this is like.
Yeah. And changing a location can, yeah, that's definitely one I've experienced in my life. The simple change of scenery and change of location can shift so much.
Yeah.
And it won't, like you said, it won't necessarily be visible at the beginning. It
Right.
will cause, like we said, It's, it's not like a big jump. It's like it it changes trajectory basically.
It does. And by by taking action and putting things in motion, you're actually opening doors that you don't understand that you're opening just yet. Because there were opportunities, because I put myself on this path, then the more I continued on it, opportunities would pop up. And I had the ability to say yes or no, obviously. But when an opportunity popped up and it was like, oh, wow, I have the opportunity to do this. Oh, okay, yes. But maybe I had to do another shift. Maybe I had to change my location again or something tiny, um, just to continue on this journey that I had put myself on. And it's really become something I never even imagined.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you talk about mini moments. Would you share with the listeners, how do they begin to notice these mini moments and start collecting them?
So your mini moments, as I said, life happens in unplanned, random, and unexpected events. And for a lot of people, we don't give ourselves credit for a lot of what we do during a day because a lot of times something will pop up. We don't really have time to deal with it, but we do it and we don't think about it. We just get through it and keep on going through our day. But if you stop to give yourself credit for that,
Hmm.
then you can collect all these little mini moments and then you can leverage confidence from it to continue to dream bigger and build a bigger goals. Um, it's something that it actually just happened earlier this week. I was driving across country. I was in the middle of a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. So the hotel that I stopped at was very small. And I happened to be in the lobby and the cops showed up. And which is why I say I was in the middle of nowhere. Um, the cops showed up. Well, the front desk person wasn't there. So the cop said, "Do you happen to know where room 106 is?" And I said, "Yeah, it's right next to mine." And so without thinking, I said, "Follow me." And I took the cop with me, showed him where the room was, and then I got out of there because I didn't know what was going on. Um, it turns out that the woman in the room was having a medical event, and so they needed to get to her quickly. But something like that, when people don't think of themselves as being spontaneous, well, that is spontaneity.
Hmm.
It shows that you are a quick thinker. If something like that, because stuff like that happens in our lives all the time, not necessarily the cops showing up, but
But yeah, yeah,
the
exactly.
unexpected,
Little
unplanned
moments
stuff
where
pops
you
up.
get to shine
Yeah, and
as you.
so then when you start to look at yourself in that way, and it's like, oh, I am a quick action taker, I am spontaneous, I am um, quick to jump in, and I can be flexible, and I can do all of these things.
I am courageous.
Exactly. Because, like, that was a cop. Like, I didn't know what was happening, but clearly somebody needed help. I was there. Like, I just ran in and did it. But you hear stories all the time about how random strangers jump in to help others. And so, like you said, it's courageous. And we shirk it off. We dismiss it because, oh, that was no big deal. Oh, I did what anybody else would do. Are you sure?
Right.
Are you sure anybody else would do that? No, give yourself the credit for what you've done.
Because you did it. Yeah.
Exactly. And much of life is like that. Life throws us an obstacle, we get through it, and sometimes it's small, sometimes it's massive. Sometimes it is that moment, like you've had that wake up moment, I've had that wake up moment. And there's, you know, we, I, my mission is to encourage people to stop waiting for that life altering event, whether it's a terminal illness diagnosis or, a loss of something. Because when those things happen, as they do in life, nobody would ever dream of wanting that to happen, but it is what's happening, and you have to get through it. There's no way around it. You just have to get
Right.
through it. And so then you can apply all those things that I was just talking about, you were as well, about being courageous and being quick to think and getting through and stuff like that. And so it's just, we, like I said, we dismiss things as insignificant because we don't stop to give ourselves credit for it. So,
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the pillars of my real mastery system is to look at, like, you know, I'm not confident.
right.
I can't do that. No, well, let's do an inventory.
Yeah.
you know, tell me some stories of your life. Oh, look, that sounds pretty confident. That sounds courageous. That sounds, what you're saying you don't have. Because like
Right.
you said, we're so on autopilot, or we've
Hmm.
got these beliefs that that's just what anybody else. I'm not special. It's just anybody else would have done that. And like you
Right.
said, really, are you sure?
Because you did.
Because I've
So you
seen
should give yourself credit.
incidences. I've seen incidences where somebody needed help, and
Hmm.
10 people walked by and just kind of went like that
Yeah.
because they didn't want to get involved.
Right.
They didn't want to take the risk.
No.
But you did. Like you said, when the obviously very unexpected. You're in a small town, and the cops show up at the one hotel you're in, and you're like, and then you said, "Go ahead." Yeah, okay, they're right up. They the room's right. I mean, it could have been anything. The guy could have been a serial killer in there or something. You knew, but you
Yeah.
just jumped into action.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
And it doesn't have to be, that's it's crazy that I knew we were going to be speaking today, and I was like, well, how funny is that just happened, because it's a perfect example. But it doesn't have to be that dramatic, of course. It could, be something simple and something small. But then we we're kind of conditioned to dismiss it as like, oh, it's not big enough to matter. It's not big enough to
Right.
count.
It could have been volunteering as a chaperone at your kid's field trip,
Yes, because not every parent's going to do that. And
or has the flexibility to do that, even.
right. And if you're going to chaperone a kids trip, depending on the age of the kids and how many there are, I mean, that could be pretty courageous as well.
Exactly. That's why I brought it up. It's a pretty courageous act to take on a
Yeah,
group of
because not
kids.
everybody would do it. Everybody'd be like, "Well, there's way too many kids for me. No, beyond my social comfort zone, or whatever." Um,
Well, and
yeah,
my wife, being an older mom, she loves our son to death. We both do, but she's
mhm.
like, I don't want to deal with anybody else's kids. She's like, I don't
Yeah,
have any patience for them. My kid, that's okay. I can deal with that. But outside of that and his immediate circle, no, no,
yeah.
thank you.
And
Not
good for
interested.
her for knowing that boundary, because there's absolutely nothing
Nothing
wrong
wrong.
with
Exactly.
setting a boundary. And you can say there are so many ways to say no without making the other person feel bad. You can always say, but people ask me all the time, they'll be like, oh, hey, we hear you're going to be in town. Can you do blah, 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 blah? And I'll say, no, I already have plans. I'm so sorry. Maybe another time.
Right.
They
I
don't
like to
need
start it
to
with,
know.
like, thank for thinking of me, but yeah, I'm not able to. Sorry.
Well, but they don't need to know that maybe I just want quiet time, and the plans that I have are with myself.
Right. It's still plans.
It's still plans, because
You're
I
not
have plans
lying.
to have quiet time by myself. I don't want to do anything except maybe, if I were a bubble bath person, maybe I'd take a bubble bath first. But,
Read a book by the
you
pool.
don't, you count as a person. So if you need to have plans with
100%.
somebody, you don't have to, you don't have to explain who your plans are with. You just say, I have plans already made. End of story. We've have this guilt that we have to explain ourselves to people when we feel like we're going to be letting them down, and we have to explain why we're going to have to let them down. No, you don't.
No,
you just
exactly.
you don't.
You don't have to be a jerk, but you can politely say, "Sorry, I have other plans. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
not able to."
exactly. And
It,
it's as
it's
simple as that. And if they push, then you just, I'm sorry, I've already explained I have other plans. I can't, I'm not going to change my commitment. And then if, you could always say, if I had plans with you, I wouldn't change my plans with you.
love it.
So please respect that I have a commitment already. Like, because, we always have that relative or that friend that just nags and nags and nag, and
Right,
they're
the
like,
boundary
why can't
busters.
you? Because I'm not me. If they're the friend or the relative, they're like, but I'm important. I'm the number one person in your life. Why can't you change plans and accommodate me? No, you are the number one person in your own life.
Absolutely. And the sooner we
So
realize that, the better.
it is. And you touched on something. You said the word I can't do. And I think one of the worst things that we can tell ourselves is I can't do or I could never. Because when life does throw us those obstacles that we have to get through, we can or we would. So instead of saying I can't do XYZ or I could never, because that's already telling yourself that you are not capable of doing it.
Right. Of course, my context was I'm telling the person, sorry, I can't do that because
Right.
I have
Yes.
a commitment. Right.
Yes.
But
It,
you're
it,
right.
it was a
I
it was a different
100%.
it was a different it was a different context, of course. But um, if we change the words when it has to do with ourselves, when we change the words to say I don't want to right now,
Mhm.
or I don't want to yet, or I don't know how to yet,
Or that
that
magic. We taught my son that word, yet.
yet.
He says, I
Hmm.
can't do long division. I said, yet.
Right.
That
It has
one
nothing to.
word changes the whole context. I can't
Yeah.
do it yet. I can't speak Arabic yet.
Right. There's nothing wrong with not knowing how to do something or not wanting to learn how to do something. I personally have no desire to get on a mountain bike and ride down some massive mountain because it scares me and I'm afraid that I will flip over the handlebars and break something. And, I would rather not do that. I don't say I can't do that because it's not that I'm not capable of doing it. I could learn. I don't want to.
Kind of brings to mind like, why would you want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane? Comment when somebody's going skydiving. Like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
not on my it's not on my list of things that I desire to do. So yeah, I'm not doing it. It's, like you
right.
said, it's not that I can't. I love the Henry Ford quote. You've probably heard it, right? Whether you say you can
Oh,
or you
yes,
say you can't, you're correct.
exactly. It's all a matter of how you say your words. It's funny you bring up skydiving because, of course, that's a frequent experience that's on people's bucket lists.
Right.
and and I have no problem with a bucket list because it's great to have goals, but so many people put a weight on accomplishing things on a bucket list. And my personal perspective is that most of us won't have enough time or money or both to be able to accomplish those things. So why set ourselves up for failure? We can have goals, but the real life that we're living, the bucket list of life that we're living, are all these little mini moments that happen. You're driving down a road and you see a cardinal. Well, we might dismiss it as insignificant because it's just a cardinal, but there are places in the world that they don't know what a cardinal is.
Right. Exactly. So, can you do a brief walkthrough of the pillars of the unknown bucket list approach?
Sure. Um, you basically, it begins with finding out really what brings you joy. And so a lot of that is going back and revisiting your core values and things that you've forgotten that bring you joy, because that will give you a starting place. And then you redefine fear, which I have acronyms. I know you like acronyms. Um, how I redefine fear is fun, excitement, and rules. If it's something that you want to do, but you're scared, it's okay that you can be scared. But if you want to do it, then there's an element of fun. So you just flip it in your brain that it's fun. You can be excited about it. Nervous energy and excited energy run on the same length. It's just a matter of
Mhm.
how you think about it. And the rules part of it is you can set your own boundaries and say, you know what, I'm comfortable doing this. And then I get to that point and I'm going to reevaluate.
Comfortable up to this point, and that's
Yeah.
well, on the topic of skydiving,
Hmm.
it's something that I've had the desire to do for the thrill. I'm a thrill seeker, I'll admit it.
Yeah.
So I got the opportunity to do. My wife like, you want to go skydiving, go right ahead, go skydiving. Don't tell me you have it on the plan. She's like, just go and do it and come back alive and tell me what you did. She's like, I don't want to know about it until
Right.
it's done. But we actually, both of us with my sister, we were in Las Vegas and we got to do indoor skydiving,
Oh,
which gives you a lot of the same feelings
yes.
in a very protective, safe environment,
Yes.
right? That's what I thought of when you said rules. Like, here's the
Yeah.
container that I'll do this.
And that's perfect because that's another way of flipping the switch on how people think. You want to do X, but maybe there's a comfort level or maybe there's a financial block or and you know whatever the case may be. How can you best achieve what it is that you want to do? And that's a perfect example. You wanted to go skydiving and the opportunity to do it indoors came up. It still leaves
Right.
space for you to go do it outdoors, but you can still say, yes, you have been skydiving.
And I think of, the other thing is, if you have this thing, this big goal that's scary, and you're not sure you can financially achieve it or whatever, and I don't have the time, money, or courage to do it, whatever. What, like, from my perspective, like, what is the underlying thing? Like, how is it achieving the value? Like, what is it you want to get out of that?
Mm-hmm.
Like the skydiving example, it's a thrill, it's the adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
So I live in the tropics. I lived in Belize for a year. There's
Uh-huh.
zip lines everywhere.
Right.
Zip lines are a much safer alternative than skydiving, and it's still a big adrenaline rush. And we even did like nights zip lining
Oh, those are fun.
in the dark. And my wife, we get to this one zip line, and she's like, "How are we getting down from here?" Because she sees there's no stairs.
Did you have to
I'm looking
repel?
around like there's no line going out to another place.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's no staircase going down. I said, we're going down on a rope. She's like, no. I was like, yeah, that's the only way down, babe. We're here
Yep.
now. There's no other way. And
Yeah.
so she told the guy, he's like, are you okay? He's like, I'm a little nervous here. He's like,
Hmm.
okay, I'll go slow. So he lets her down about 2 feet,
Right.
nice and gentle and slow.
Uh-huh.
And then he just lets it go a little bit. So she gets that drop. And I just
Uh-huh.
hear this scream that echoes through the jungle. But she got down and she's like, that was killer.
I love that story because it was not on her bucket list to do that. However, once she did it, especially with you what you said as her reaction at the end, so that would be something that goes on her unknown bucket list because she never would have done it. She never dreamed of doing that, but she enjoyed it,
Right.
and she wouldn't have known that she enjoyed it until she did it because it was unknown. And so it's
Exactly.
The unknown bucket list. I was talking about. You go back. You do your core values. You find out what brings you authentic joy, and you look at all the things that you've accomplished in the manner which we've already been discussing, and you leverage confidence from that. You redefine the fear, so you have a foundation of confidence that you can leverage from, and you redefine your fear, and that will give you freedom of choice. And the more that you collect all these little mini moments that happen in life, you're supersizing your life. You'll leverage confidence from that to dream bigger and maybe achieve items on your bucket list in whatever manner is possible. And now you have a life bigger than you imagined. And it's just a literally it's literally a way of looking at life differently is all it is. It's
Right.
just flipping a switch.
Flipping a switch, putting a different set of glasses on to
Yeah.
see things a little better.
Well, and then once you have all of these like little mini moments gathered, then that just builds resilience as well. It's just like a it's like our own personal self-defense shield. And we look back and we're like, oh well, I had to deal with this and this and that. So this little thing right here, you're not going to ruin my day because you're too small to ruin my day. And big stuff I can get through. So it's just this, like I said, a multifunctional approach.
We couldn't have planned that better. Like you go into this resilience in your safety zone. Like that was the next question on my list is like creating the energetic boundaries, creating your resilience force field. And like you just set it up beautifully.
That's funny. But yeah, it's just, it gets it it's just a cyclical thing is that, you know, you start like we've said, you look at life differently now and you're like, "Oh, okay, well, it just it gives you the confidence and then the next time you want to do something, your fear is less because you've already redefined it in a previous experience, or you're looking at something else and you're like, well, I've already done that, so I might as well just do this. And so then you just go. And eventually you stop thinking about looking at life differently, and life just is different. And
Right.
it is the life that you're living that you don't regret.
Well, and on the zip line
Yeah,
thing, I didn't take her to this night zip lining, like, hey, let's go night zip lining. And she just jumped right in.
right.
We had a friend, we made friends with a guy that was closer to where we lived who had a
Uh-huh.
little zip line park where the zip lines were much tamer. And she did it. She's like,
Uh-huh.
hey, that wasn't too bad. Like, I survived, I did it. So
Right.
that gave her, like you said, it gave her a new platform to be willing to try the night zip lining.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she proved to herself that she could do it
Right. She wasn't going to
on a
die.
smaller scale, on maybe lower to the ground, perhaps. Um, but yeah, it's just that proof that okay, well, I did this, and it doesn't always have to be the exact same thing. But like you and I talked once before, and I was talking about learning to walk and talk and drive a car. All things that we didn't know how to do before. And it's the same with life. If you want to do something and you don't know how to do it, it's okay. We've proven to ourselves we are capable of learning how to do very complex tasks and master them to the point where we don't even think about it. If you're
Right.
driving down the interstate at 80 miles an hour, it's like, oh, oops, I'm speeding. But you didn't jump into the driver's seat and start going 80 miles an hour down the interstate.
Right. And again, it's similar to what we were saying before. The simple act, it's so mundane. Like you said, we get in the car, we
Mhm.
drive to our destination. Often we kind of get lost in our thoughts. We look down at the speedometer, it's way over the speed limit. And we're like, whoa, I'm going really fast. I You said 80. I looked down one time, it was like over 100. I was like, but then I was like, hey, that was kind of cool. Let's do it again.
Yeah, that happened to me while I was driving in New Zealand. I was like, oh,
Yeah. Well, Yeah, because I remember we were driving from Michigan to Missouri. It was late at night,
Hmm.
and this car comes up next to us, and he's like doing this back and forth, and I'm like, and I had a sporty little car with turbo. Like my cousin told me they were going to put turbo on this car, but when
Uh-huh.
they tested the engine with turbo, they're like, no, 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 that's way too powerful for the
Oh.
average person. So the motor all by itself was already powerful. Like
Uh-huh.
they decided not to put turbo on it because it would have been too much. So I remember I like, it's funny, the car was a Plymouth Duster, and I dusted this guy. We were doing over 120 miles an hour down the freeway.
Whew.
And then we stop at the rest stop,
Uh-huh.
and I walk into the bathroom, and the guy walks behind me. It's the guy. And I'm just kind of, let me do what I got to do and get out of here. I didn't want to come
Woo.
because I'm not a fighter. Like, put me in a car and do some crazy stuff like that. Yeah, I'll show my manness or whatever. But
Yeah.
somebody starts wanting to throw punches, dude, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Now, society, as you said it before,
Hmm.
right? Society teaches us suck it up. And I was thinking when you were talking about that, right? You made your bed, now you got to sleep in it. Right? How
Yeah.
many times did we hear that when we were young?
Right.
How do you coach people you've worked with
Hmm.
to escape this tolerance trap and claim that personal choice and agency in their life?
Well, the first thing is that the person has to get comfortable with the fact that they are worthy of making changes in their life. And by doing so, they might disappoint some people, but that's okay because as we've been talking about, it's our life and we deserve to live the one that we want, without regret. So it's literally just, it's not leaps and bounds. It's not a massive overhaul overnight. It's little micro mini shifts. You do a little bit, and it goes back to I redefine fear. You put some rules into place. You have a desire to better your life. There's the fun and excitement part of it. You're scared, understandably, but we'll put some rules in and you say, okay, this, and that's why it's a very personal journey
Right.
because some people are like, okay, yeah, nope, I'm ready. I have some other words that I use to redefine fear as well, but they're adult language. um, but some people are that point and they're like, no, I'm ready, I'm gung ho. And other people are like, oh, but I have this and I have this and I have this. And I would never tell somebody that their reasons as to why they do or don't do something are not valid because it's that
Their
person's reason.
reason. It's their
Yeah,
reason. Yeah.
their reason is not for me to judge, for me to determine it's a valid reason or not. That's their life. So it's just getting comfortable with making that shift if you're not quite there yet. And it's about seeing the possibilities. And it's just, you know, traveling. I'm going to use this as an example. People say the word travel, and it's automatically assumed that you have to go a great distance. Maybe you have to get on a plane or a train, but it's usually of a significant difference. But all that really matters is that you go. You could go to the other side of town to a park, and if you have to take a bus or a bicycle to get there, you traveled.
Right.
And it's not, that's where another part of the flipping the switch comes in is that just because something is done different than how everybody else thinks it's supposed to be, like you went skydiving,
Right.
people assume you mean jumped outside of an airplane outside, but Just because you did it indoors doesn't mean you didn't go skydiving. You still went skydiving. So it's just making those little micro shifts for the people who aren't gung ho, like, I'm ready to change my entire life. The people who are a little more reserved and have
Mhm.
concerns, you can still do it. And we just take a softer approach to it.
Right. Well, you know, maybe you've got young kids, or
Mhm.
maybe you've got a long-term relationship that you're not looking to blow it up, but you need to show, you don't want to exit it, you know.
Yeah,
We opened with a very dramatic story, but there are a
we
lot of
did.
people that they just need to make a small shift. I heard my wife talking to one of her clients,
Hmm.
and it was in a marriage. Like, it's not a bad marriage. It's
Right.
just things aren't working right.
Yeah.
There's not harmony and connection, and everything it should be.
Right.
And that could be a marriage, that could be a workplace relationship. As an entrepreneur, it could be a client relationship. Things are just
Yeah.
not connecting. And so you make some adjustments.
Right.
I, I,
And
I was just talking about this. It's not, they illustrate the comfort zone, right? They have a ring for the comfort zone,
mhm.
and my favorite one has four more rings. We're not talking about jumping from the comfort zone out to the outer ring, the growth
No.
zone, right? We're talking about, here's the line,
Uh-huh.
step on the line.
Right.
Okay, I got it to the line. Can I take one half step on the other side of the line of the
Hmm.
comfort zone, right? Make a
Yeah.
little shift.
Going along that visual, when I was talking about, if you take 3 steps forward in a straight line, but if you go back and you take this tiny little shift and take 3 steps forward, you've made a little bit of a change. Well, once you get to that point, if you make another little change and take 3 steps forward, then eventually you get to where if you keep
Right.
going a little bit at a time. So same concept of getting outside the zone.
Right. Yeah. Or, like you said, travel. Travel doesn't mean you have to fly to another country that doesn't speak your language on the other
No.
side of the world. It could be the next town over.
Yes.
It could be
You can
the
go.
it could be the park a mile from your house instead of the one 2 blocks away.
Right.
It's I totally resonated with that, because not from my own life, because I was 18 and I joined the military and I was traveling the world.
Sure.
I came back to my hometown, and all the popular kids, because I was the nerd, the outcast in school. I come
Uh-huh.
back, all the cheerleaders and jocks, they're working at the video rental store
And haven't been anywhere.
and haven't been anywhere. They haven't even been out of the little town that of 5,000.
Yeah.
Um, but my wife's aunt came out to California with her mom to visit us. 60 years old. Not only hadn't left her state,
Hmm.
hadn't been outside of her township or county
Right.
in 60 something years. And she was scared to death. But then I have a funny story because in Michigan, the highways are very different from California highways. So you
Hmm.
you spent time in California, they have the little reflectors that when you go over the lane, they go rump 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 rump. We call
Right.
them brumps. Like, we literally,
Yeah.
and I as a kid, I grew up in California. We said, "Oh, you hit the brumps."
Right.
And we jokingly say, "Oh, you're driving by Braille again."
That's clever.
So we're driving from the airport with her
Uh-huh.
aunt, who's never been out of her town,
Right.
and my wife cracks the joke, and my her aunt's like, "Sharon, we need to go back to Michigan. Like, get me out of here. Like, I don't know what, like, California's letting blind people drive." Like, it didn't even dawn on her. Like, how would they? My wife goes, "Aunt Pat, how could they drive? Like, they got to do more than just stay in the lane."
Yeah.
But her mom did the same thing. We were crossing a bridge,
Hmm.
and I had the fast pass on.
Okay.
So I'm driving like the across the bridge like I've done 100 times before, just going through the fast lane. I hear whispering in the back. And I'm like, what's going on? It's my mother in law and her boyfriend.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, are you running drugs or something? Like, why would you even ask that? Because you didn't stop like everybody else. I said, you see that little thing right there? It just paid my toll for me. I don't have to stop. Oh, it goes to show you don't know what you don't know
Right.
until you take those 3 steps forward
Hmm.
and survey again. Like, oh, nope, this isn't where I want to be. Go, like you said, go back,
Hmm.
pivot a degree,
Yeah.
and go forward again. And if you need to back up 3 steps and do it again, do it again.
Hmm. Yep.
Right?
Once you get used to it's the initial fear around all of that about taking those steps and pivoting, and then accepting that it's okay to say, oh, I changed my mind, I want to go back. And there's a fear and a guilt and a self-doubt, and there's all kinds of stuff in the very beginning. But once you get used to thinking this way and you just start going and going and going, eventually, like I said earlier, you do it without thinking, but you also get, because you get more comfortable with
Right. And
doing
that's
the way.
also a pillar of your approach, right? Momentum.
Hmm. Yes. Yep. Because you basically just, okay, well, now I've made it through one round and I want to change some more. Okay, well, it just repeats.
Get the flywheel spinning.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
And before you know it, you're doing 100 miles an hour down the interstate without thinking.
And you live and you don't get a
Yes.
ticket.
No.
Um, so I want to highlight some of the points. If you're
Mhm.
not dead, you're not done, right? I think
Right.
that's your words. You're still breathing. You wake up. I said it jokingly in the past. I don't joke it because it is, I do look forward. Every day I wake up and I'm still alive,
Hmm.
I can do it different. Whatever happened yesterday, it's done. I'm got today to now do it a new way, whatever
Right.
that looks like.
Hmm.
Um, Collecting past wins, no matter how small, right?
Exactly. Just because it's not exactly how somebody else might think it needs to be done doesn't mean that it's not a win and that it shouldn't count, because it should.
Well, and I believe like your wins are yours to define,
Yes, absolutely.
not the outside world. It's, each person, if that's a win for you, that's a win for you.
Exactly.
Doesn't have to look like my win or your
No.
win or somebody else's win.
Nope.
In the end, it's about getting to the end of our life, whenever that comes,
Yes,
with no regrets, right?
exactly. Because we'll always have, I don't care who you are, when you get to the end of your life, you're always going to want more time with your family or your friends. That's a given. You can't change that. But as long as you are living the life that you don't regret the entire time, then you won't get to the end of your life and be like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done that, or, that type of regret, because you'll have already been doing it.
Yeah. I love the quote. I saw this in somebody's bathroom once, and I don't remember exactly what it said. It said, life is not about the number of breaths you take, but about the moments that take your breath away,
Yeah, I like that.
right? It's about enjoying every moment we have,
Yeah.
celebrate those wins, find happiness, find fulfillment right here, right now, whatever that looks like for each of us.
Mhm.
All right, we're at the top, we're almost at an hour. How do they find you?
I'm pretty much on the socials at the Unknown Bucket List. If somebody is on the social media channels, my website is also the Unknown Bucket List, if somebody kind of wants to get a head start on their exploring their core values and revisiting some of their past and kind of jogging their memory on some of their mini moments that maybe they've overlooked, I have a self-assessment at it's a play on words. It's resumeyourlife.com or resumeyourlife.com. It's spelled the exact same way.
Right.
And I like to say
Missing the
you can,
accent, which you can't have in a web address anyway.
right? And so I like to say you resume your life to resume your life on your terms. Is kind of how I like to.
And I'll definitely include all those links in the show notes if you're listening. So you'll be able to connect with Jay, do the do her assessment. Start today. I also agree. It starts with our values. There are certain things that each of us, like you said, Jay, that bring us authentic joy and fulfillment and happiness.
Mhm.
Um, it's what drives me to do this podcast because one of my top human needs is contribution. It's about giving to others, which is its own challenge. We talked about boundaries and saying no. I had to learn that. I was a people pleaser in the past,
Mhm.
and I had to learn that it's okay, as we talked about, to say no sometimes.
Right.
And as you said, it's going to disappoint people. People are going to feel let down.
Mhm.
That's okay. It
It is
happens,
okay.
right?
They'll get over it. It'll
Yep.
be okay.
Yeah. And if they don't, that's not on you.
No, it's not. And
Unless you're being a jerk.
right. Well, and that's why I say I believe in setting boundaries, because if you don't commit to people and then always back out, then that's going to make them think a certain way of you. But if you just say no to begin with, then you're already establishing the boundary. And eventually they'll get to the point where, when you do say yes to them, they'll know that you mean it.
Right.
And then you won't disappoint them. It's just a matter of establishing that relationship, really.
Yes. All right. Any closing thoughts or thing that you would love the listeners to take away from our conversation today?
Aside from everything that we've talked about, another visualization of how we can live life, and maybe it's not, and give ourselves credit for things that maybe it's not to the point where other people expect it to be. So if I took you to the bank of a river, let's say the Mississippi River, a lot of people know that it's very wide, 2 miles at the widest part, and I told you you could walk across the river, you might look at me and think, you're insane. I cannot walk on water. But if I shifted your perspective and I took you to the headwaters of the Mississippi River, where there are boulders that you can actually walk across, you're still walking across the Mississippi River. You just didn't do it the way people picture it. Because if you say you're going to walk across the river, people picture the wide river. You're still accomplishing the task. It just looks different. And it's not considered cheating. You're still accomplishing what it is that you said.
Right.
It's
You
just
said
a little
walk across
different.
the river. You didn't say
Yes,
walk on water.
right. You walked across the river. So, and that concept can be applied really to anything in life. Is that, well, it wasn't big enough, or I somehow cheated. No, you just shift your perspective. Just flip the
Right.
switch on how you're thinking.
Yeah. It reminds me when I was in university, we saw this documentary. These two his, history explorers,
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to explore some of the some of the stories that were told in the Bible. They went to the Red Sea. Like
Mm-hmm.
they looked at the map and there's all these stories of, well, the Israelites just crossed at the very narrowest part, or they had all these stories of, there's no way that seas opened up and the people walked through. these two explorers, basically, they found a spot that a certain tidal shift,
Right.
there's like a land bar. You walk across the Red Sea, it's like this deep.
Uh-huh.
Because, as the tide drops,
Sure.
and I've seen it. I was at a beach in California once.
Uh-huh.
There's like an island 100 feet off the shore. When the tide's out, you can walk to the island on
Hmm.
dry land.
Yeah. So you can walk to
But
the island.
basically make sure you walk back before the tide comes in, but or you're just
Right.
spending the night out there. But yeah, so like you said, it's about perspective. Like the idea of crossing the Mississippi without a boat or a bridge is like,
Right.
no way, I can't do that. But
Hmm.
given the right tools and the right
Yes.
perspective,
Yes.
you can.
Absolutely.
All right, great way to end it. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Beyond the Boost. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks again, Jay.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks for tuning in to Daily Power Boost. Ignite your potential. Remember, transformation starts with action. So take today's insight, make it your own, and awaken your inner potential. Because remember, greatness begins within. Catch you tomorrow for your next Power Boost.